Another day, another big budget franchise film looking like it'll crash and burn at the box office. It kind of feels like it's become the rule rather than the exception at this stage. This time we're talking about this month's Supergirl. The final trailer has been released and it looks just as uninspiring as the previous trailer in my view. Nothing really to write home about. Superman features a little bit more in this trailer. The film has a production budget of $170 million. That's the figure going around anyway. But the film is looking set to struggle at the box office, if the box office projections for the film's opening weekend are anything to go by. And it's really, really bad. And I have to say, it is looking very bad for this film. Now, I don't think anyone can come out at this early stage and say definitively that this is going to be a box office bomb or anything. But given the box office projections, the general low interest in the film I'm seeing online, and the fact that Supergirl as a character carries much less cachet and popularity than the likes of DC heavyweights like Superman and Batman, if I was a betting man, yeah, I'd say the film will probably be a box office bomb. Now, on the subject of Supergirl's box office projections, I wanted to take a look at a few excerpts from this article from WashingtonTimes.com. As always, whenever I quote from an article, I will always include it linked below in the description box for you to read in full if you wish. Supergirl tracking data draws concerns from box office analysts ahead of June opening. Now, the opening weekend is actually expected to be lower than the opening weekend for last year's Superman. And I don't need to remind you once again that Superman also failed to recoup its costs. So, in that respect, I cannot see Supergirl matching Superman's box office earnings, let alone beating Superman at the box office. Supergirl as a character lacks the popularity of Superman. I think that goes without saying. So, yeah, I personally can't see this film being anything other than a box office failure. It says, according to box office theory projections cited by industry observers, the Warner Brothers release, set to open June 26th, is currently forecast to debut domestically between $47 million and $65 million, which I have to say is lower than I would have expected. That range would place it numerically between The Marvels, which opened to $46 million in 2023 on a reported budget of more than $220 million, and Black Adam, which opened to $67 million in 2022. That is really low. I mean, The Mandalorian and Grogu opened to much higher than that range, and still we can see that it's going to be a box office failure. It's not going to recoup its budget. So this looks like another big franchise film that is set to fail financially. And it's not like the budget for Supergirl is astronomical or anything. I mean, there has been, I will say, a recent trend in Hollywood of trying to make these kinds of films for under $200 million. And that is certainly commendable, because the budgets for some of these superhero films in recent years was just getting out of control. And so, yeah, I guess studios are finally trying to get a handle on these budgets a little bit, and making these films for under $200 million is definitely the way to go. But it's still not enough. These films have to make double their production and marketing budgets because of how revenue is split between studios and theaters. And so a film like Supergirl probably has to make $500 million just to break even, realistically, right? Now, I'm basing that on a conservative estimate of the marketing budget being no more than $100 million. And I don't know exactly what the marketing costs are for the film. That's really just an estimate. But that's typically the figure for these kinds of movies. And it's going to be a big ask. It's going to be a big ask. And again, $500 million just to break even. That's before the film makes a profit. So again, a very big ask for this film, especially if it's going to be starting its opening domestic weekend with such low numbers. It says Supergirl's budget has not been officially disclosed. Industry outlet Puck estimates it at roughly $170 million, a meaningful different cost profile. Yeah, so that's the production costs. Again, that's not including the marketing costs, which are also very big. Puck's Scott Mendelson has reported that industry executives would likely consider a global gross of around $425 million good enough, factoring in the estimated production budget. Though Puck notes Warner Brothers would prefer the film to clear $500 million. Yes, that is in line with my own estimates. But $500 million is really just break-even territory. It's still a considerable amount of money for this film to generate, and I just don't see it doing that. It's possible, but I suspect if it doesn't really get a very strong start, how is it going to maintain a good hold going into its subsequent weekends? I mean, if we compare this film to Black Adam, which was mentioned earlier. So Black Adam is a film that made $393.4 million worldwide. As per Box Office Mojo, as you can see here. That was its total box office gross. So if Supergirl ends up making that kind of money, it'll be a straight up box office bomb, just like Black Adam was. So Supergirl needs a really big weekend, and it's unlikely to have one. What it really needed was a weekend in line with Superman's opening weekend. And it's going to fall short of that by some margin. By some margin. Yeah. So the box office is looking bad for Supergirl. And I'm not surprised. But look, perhaps it's time for major Hollywood studios to look elsewhere for their big summer blockbuster movies. Because maybe the superhero well has run dry. Maybe it's tapped out. Maybe it's tapped out and audiences are ready for something new. I think personally we're going to see a lot more video game adaptations, video game based movies. I think that's going to be the new thing that takes over from the superhero movie genre. Superhero movies will always be made. There will always be an audience for them, of course. But it's time to stop relying on them quite so frequently to be these massive box office juggernauts. And certainly, I don't think it'll ever be possible to repeat what Marvel did with the MCU, a multi-movie superhero franchise. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think it's repeatable. But Warner and DC keep trying to replicate it with no real success. I think it's time to let it go. So that's going to do it for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Computing Forever. Hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates. Hit that like button. Share the video out there. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.